Hello. It's gonna be follow up or forget my husband. I'll go make chapter 73. Eggs goes crack. What is wrong with him? Aristine looked at Tarkan's sudden strange reaction with doubt in her eyes. What is it? Do you have a nightmare? As she spoke, she stretched a hand towards him, but flinched. Tarkan clutched his nightrobe tighter and moved backward. Aristine stared at him with bewilderment, her outstretched hand still hanging in the air. So she wasn't just imagining, it really felt like she had become one shameless fellow. Moreover, the type that harasses innocent maidens. I was just sleeping. She felt wrong being treated like this. Why? What's wrong? At Aristine's question, Tarkan looked at her with face full of vigilance. He looked like a large panther with its hair standing on ends as he spat out. You said we'd just hold hands and sleep. At cryptic words, Aristine tilted her head to the side. She didn't do anything else apart from holding hands. She fell asleep as soon as her head hit the pillow, so that what could she have possibly done? She looked down at her hand for a bit, then realized, oh, I must have let go in my sleep. Sorry. She thought he was upset because she promised to hold his hand and sleep, but let go in the middle. It seems her husband was the type to sulk easily. Contrary to what his relaxed yet dangerous beast-like outer appearance believed, he was quite the high-maintenance man. It's what she thought, but it was true she did not keep her promise. Aristine moved a little closer to comfort him. But why did Tarkan frown and glitter her even more? What did you say to me? His low voice was even chiller than the freezing point. If this was anyone else, they would have gone pale and fallen to the ground on their knees immediately. Unfortunately, to Aristine, he looked like a toothless baby panther. Moreover, the type to pout when she didn't hold his hands the entire time. All right, I was wrong. You must be upset. Next time, I'll hold on tight even when I'm sleeping, Seeing her looking up to him and talking like she was an adult, Tarkan was already getting a migraine, and the day hadn't even started properly. He wasn't even surprised. After all, he hadn't slept a wink all night. How can this woman just... Lack of sleep wasn't because he was worried about the woman lying next to him. Do that to me? Seriously, he was speechless and in disbelief at this ridiculous situation. After she was touching me, he couldn't sleep because he was being harassed by the woman. The veins on Tarkan's head bulged. Are you pretending not to know? Or do you really not know? His golden yellow eyes, reminiscent of a wild beast, fell on Aristine, sharply piercing through her. His gaze was so chilling that all her hairs stood on end. You forgot how you massaged my chest the entire night? This was the first time that Aristine had heard of this. His words were squeezed through ground teeth, and upon hearing that, Aristine blinked. I massage your chest. Tarkan's gaze grew even more frenzied, but there was some embarrassment mixed in. Aristine, who was dumbfounded. Me? Who else is here? Do you? At those words, Tarkan shut his mouth, his eyes darted away, and his cheeks turned a little red. His reaction was pretty much confirmation, and Aristine gasped in disbelief. So you're telling me I really rubbed Tarkan's chest? Even after organizing this in her head, she had never heard anything more absurd. There's no way. Aristine shook her head. She chuckled like she just heard a funny joke. Seeing her reaction, the bulging veins on Tarkan's forehead increased. He was the one who wished this was a joke. He remembered the feeling of her soft hand rubbing his chest last night. Her delicate fingers traced the outline like she was checking it. Then she pressed down and used her entire palm to massage it as if it belonged to her. He never thought he would experience such a thing in his life. Startled as he was, he tried to ask her what she was doing, but to his disbelief, Aristine was still asleep. And in deep sleep, too. How can you be sleeping and move your hands in such a various ways? Tarkan's hand, which was gripping his nightclothes, trembled. Tarkan barely calmed down, knowing that if he applied more force to the nightclothes, it would tear apart. He was never going to show his bare chest in front of this woman. Aristine, who was chuckling, slowly stopped when she realized that Tarkan's reaction was different from what she was expecting. She thought he would go. She didn't fall for it at this point and tell her the truth. What the? Aristine looked into Tarkan's eyes. It can't be. Seriously? At least Tarkan's reaction seemed to say so. Now that I think about it, a memory suddenly flashed through her mind. I had a dream, but at those words Tarkan recoiled. Dream? It must be a dirty dream. No, he was certain it was a dirty dream. Definitely, that was obvious. Otherwise, she wouldn't have used that kind of technique. He thought she was different, but sure enough, Aristine wanted his body just like the other women. Her trembled eyes and bewildered expression by now were proof of that. She must have been confused by the incredible dream she had. As if she was considering telling the truth, Aristine slowly opened her mouth. I dreamt of touching breath. Breath? Yeah. The breath was really warm and puffy. It felt really nice. As she spoke, Aristine licked her lips, perhaps thinking of the scene from that dream. It looked delicious, but I couldn't eat it. You see, her eyes grew unfocused, like she was remembering something with nostalgia in red. With her expression, someone might think she was recalling a past lover instead of bread. It was bread, but it was a little hard. They said it would get softer if I touched it, so I was fiddling with it, but Aristine lowered her head. I'm sorry. Tarkan looked at Aristine's bowed head with utter disbelief. The woman who treated someone's chest like warm, puffy breath was bowing her head like a criminal. He was so dumbstruck by all of this that he didn't even have the energy to get angry. In the end, this proves one thing. Anyone he says will just hold hands and sleep cannot be trusted. That's the end of chapter 73. Chapter 74. Aristine thought it was morning when she woke up, but it was already past noon. The court ladies were arranging Aristine's meal, with satisfied smiles on their faces. They had prepared nourishing food for her, since she must be exhausted after last night. Rather than the bride, the new groom was the one who was exhausted, but there was no way for the court ladies to know that. After Aristine woke up, Tarkan left first, saying he had things to deal with. She would have been sad about him going to work on the first day of their married life, but such thought didn't even cross Aristine's mind. The same went for the court ladies, let alone sad. They were amazed for that Prince Tarkan to wait for his bride to wake up before he left the bedroom. Even though they saw it with their own eyes, they couldn't believe it. The warriors who had been with Tarkan for many years had also thought of the same thing. They had gathered in the meeting chamber since dawn to wait for the Lord. However, time passed quickly, and even after this was past the usual time that they finished the morning meetings, Tarkan had not appeared. Upon hearing that, the Lord was still in the bridal chamber. The warriors raised a ruckus, wanting to check if that was really true. That alone was already very surprising, and then, apparently the bed collapsed completely and broke into pieces. They couldn't wrap their head around how that even happened. What in the world had happened last night? There was no doubt that something crazy that defied imagination had happened. They weren't exactly wrong, because what happened was certainly something they couldn't imagine, although it was completely different from what the court ladies thought. Unaware of this fact, the court ladies kept glancing at Aristine, who was devouring the batter-grilled abalone. The princess even bathed alone. Thus far, Aristine had never refused her service while she bathed. But today, she said she would wash herself and ask all the servants to withdraw. The traces must be that intense, the lewd bunch thought to themselves and giggled inwardly. They were having just imagination. However, they had designed everything with their own hands, from the bed to the lingerie, to the bridal chamber, so they wanted to hear the specific details. Mm, Your Highness, how was it? The question was abrupt. Aristine stirred the beef-rich potted fur and returned the question. How was what? His Highness Tarkan, I mean... Aristine munched on the chewy meat and took a glance around. The ladies were staring at her with a very eager expression, like a dog looking at a bone. Not really wanting to disappoint them, Aristine's mind flew back to Tarkan from last night. Naturally, she couldn't talk about asking him to sleep on the floor, or their argument to just hold hands and sleep. Even Tarkan's breaking of the bed was out. If that's the case, then there was only one thing that happened other than that. Quite soft, actually. She thought a man's chest would undoubtedly be firm, but it was surprisingly soft. Oh my, His Highness Tarkan is... Aristine was the only person in this world who would talk of Tarkan as soft. The eyes of the ladies twinkled like the stars. I see. Tender. He might be rough to others, but to his wife he is... His Highness Tarkan can be scary, but to think he tenderly melts in front of his wife at night? The lady's lips kept twitching up and down. Aristine tried her best to recall the texture of the breath she fondled in her dream, as she explained. It was smooth, yet firm, and springy. Oh my goodness, it was as if she was describing a specific part, and her explanation was very vague. The ladies widened in surprise. Of course, the corner of the lips rose to the sky. Was it big? Very big. Aristine nodded and looked down at her hand. She didn't know the exact size, because she touched it in her sleep, but the bread in her dream was huge. It was hot, too. It was hot and toasty, like freshly baked bread. Aristine's expression grew hazy as she recalled the appetizing puffy bread. Even though she was already eating, thinking of tasting it made her happy. It must have been a passionate night. I guess she liked it that much. I'm glad they are a good fit. I knew it. This couple is a perfect match. The ladies simultaneously grew excited and squealed together. Please, eat a lot, Your Highness. Yes, you need to eat a lot to keep up with His Highness Tarkan's stamina. His Highness Tarkan, though, how can he be so, to someone so small and delicate? Dear me, it was intense enough to even break the bed. I know what you mean. People shouldn't be too greedy. One should have a conscience. If that conscience exists, the difference in physique would have been considered, and it would have stopped when one leg of the bed broke. You're so right. Our princess looks like she's about to fly with the wind. To reiterate once again, Aristine was definitely on the bigger side for a Sylvanian. I can tell if they're praising Tarkan or criticizing him, Aristine thought as she looked at the ladies who were chattering happily. Contrary to their critical words, their expressions alone made it seem like a compliment, and not just a simple compliment, but glowing praise. Aristine knew what kind of misunderstanding the ladies were having, but she didn't plan on correcting it. If anything, she half intentionally spoke, in a way that could have misunderstood, because it needed to be known that she and Tarkan had a good marital relationship. I'm worried about Diana, though, Aristine thought as she took a big bite of her raspberry cheesecake. After all, she would feel comfortable when she hears various rumors about her lover in another woman, although Tarkan would likely tell her that nothing had happened. Wait, I guess something did happen. She unintentionally stole the innocence of Tarkan's chest. After pondering for a bit, Aristine shrugged and turned her attention to the combination of fresh raspberries and soft cheesecake that filled her mouth. Those two will figure it out themselves. A third party shouldn't involve themselves with a lovers anyway. Right now, it was a time to focus on enjoying the little cheesecake that was left. as she was munching on the desserts like that, Aristine realized something. I haven't eaten the egg. There was a boiled egg placed adorably in a pretty egg cup. She had never had anything served like this. She forgot it even existed. Oh well, I've had dessert anyway. Just as that thought crossed Aristine's mind, clatter. The door to the dining room carelessly flew open. Aristine knew what it was without even looking up. There was only a certain group of people who would dare to act so senselessly in this palace. Indeed, when she looked up, the Sylvanus handmaid Brody was standing there, breathing hard. Princess! A nervous voice reverberated through the dining room. What? How can you say what? Did you not hear the news from last night? What news? Something bad happened to our steam knight. Brody exclaimed like she was frustrated. Something bad? Aristine's eyes widened, as if she was just hearing this for the first time, then she tilted her hand. And as she did so, she picked up a small spoon with her right hand. Then with a flick of her wrist, she struck down. Tack! The egg cracked with a light sound. Seeing this, Brody's face instantly crumpled. That's the end of chapter 74. Chapter 75. What do you think you're doing? Brody turned pale and retorted. Even though she tried not to think about it, she still remembered the nights whose eggs were just crushed. How could someone be so cruel? Brody looked at Aristine with detest. However, Aristine was actually looking at Brody with a strange look in her eyes. I'm just eating an egg? Her tone seemed to say, You've never seen someone eat an egg? The egg it's broken. Of course it's broken. Am I supposed to eat it with a shell? To be treated like a crazy person by none other than a princess, who was disregarded and treated as a lunatic, made Brody felt aggravated. Her face burned red with shame. However, she couldn't say anything. Don't tell me, she really doesn't know what happened yesterday? After hearing what happened to the knights, Brody naturally thought that it was done on purpose to humiliate them. So now I've just become the weird person here? Brody tried to compose her expression and arrogantly raised her chin. It seems you didn't even know what happened to your knights because you were lazing around until the middle of the day. Regardless of what Brody was saying, Aristine paid attention while going to smack her egg. The cracks in the shell grew longer and deeper. Brody's eyes twitched when she saw that. Princess! What? Tack! Silver spoon cracked open the soft egg. Seeing Aristine bring it to her mouth and munch delightedly. Brody couldn't stand it any longer. Are you doing this because you know the situation with your knights are in right now? How can you even eat that? At those words, Aristine swallowed and the egg in her mouth went down. The fresh egg was savory, soft, and very delicious. It was seasoned properly, and the yolk was cooked just enough. It was not dripping, but not too dry either. I can't eat fine, though. This is delicious. Brody's lips trembled when she heard that casual response. He wanted to fire a sharp retort, but didn't even know what to say. Aristine whirled a spoon in her hand. Then she asked, What exactly happened that you're acting like this? Brody couldn't bring herself to say that the eggs of the knights were broken. Such words were too vulgar to come out of the mouth of a noble lady like herself. No matter how she packed it. Those barbaric, valiant, and violent are irregular warriors cause trouble. Our knights were heavily injured. Oh, you come to find me just for that? Just that? The knights serve the princess with all their sincerity, and naturally, the princess must take care of them. If they serve her with any more of their sincerity, they will become sex offenders. Aristine slowly leaned back in her chair, twirling the spoon between her index finger and thumb. The reflection of the expressionless face flickered back and forth on the curve of the spoon. I believe I turned down your requests to be your guys' nannies last time. Excuse me? By now, you're saying the knights got heat, so I should go and scold the other party. Brody's mouth flew shut. When Aristine put it like that, it made Brody seem like a very childish person. That's because the knights are people who serve you, princess, so, first of all, the princess, right, they serve me, I do not serve them. Aristine, who had only been watching the spoon spinning differently, raised her head and looked at Brody. The moment Brody met those emotionless purple eyes, she unconsciously swallowed dryly. For some reason, she felt chills running down her spine. In a subconscious effort to avoid the gaze, Brody began to look around, but she flinched. All the coloured ladies in the dining room were coldly staring at her with an impassive expression. Their faces were so cold that it was hard to imagine that they became the same little bunch that was cackling at Aristine's story just earlier. And here I was wondering, who would dare to open the door to Her Highness' dining room without knocking while Her Highness is eating? With that as the trigger, the irregular ladies began to speak one after the other. It seems the home handmaid should be the most considerate of her master, doesn't know how to show respect to her master. Since she doesn't even know basic manners, I doubt she even knows how to be respectful. Are you talking to me right now? Brody's face flushed red as she questioned the coloured ladies. Is there anyone else other than you, miss? Her intelligence is too low to learn proper etiquette, so apparently her judgment is as low as well. The Iranian way of speaking, which was much more direct than that of a Salvinian. The coloured ladies looked down at Brody and laughed. Before yesterday, Aristine was not Tarquin's wife. Although they were soon to be married, the wedding hadn't happened yet, hence the coloured ladies basically treated Aristine like another lady they were close to. Naturally, they couldn't reprimand or say anything to Aristine's maid, because such actions would be disregarded towards Aristine. However, it was different now. Aristine was a princess of this country, the hostess of this palace, and their master. They could criticize these handmaids who didn't know their place and dared to act upon anyhow they wanted. When the Iranian coloured ladies with a much bigger stature looked down at Brody with sharp glares, Brody couldn't help but shrink back. Were they staring at her like that the whole time? Brody had no idea when this even started. He was so agitated when she rushed into the room and was only thinking about getting angry at Aristine. Why should I even to these barbarians? Her pride wouldn't allow her to simply back down in front of these barbarians. Brody clenched her fist and took a step forward. I am the princess handmaid from her maiden home. How dare you insult me when I'm the closest maid to the princess? The princess will soon, although you couldn't really say she was making a stand for herself because she was trembling so hard that it looked pitiful. Technically speaking, you're not really my handmaid. Aristine shrugged. You never helped me do anything when I was in Sylvanus, did you? That said, since you followed me all this way to serve me, I should treat you with the appropriate respect, both you and the knights. Aristine mumbled, then she got up from her seat. Brody's body was tense as she watched Aristine. Those words definitely sounded good for her, but why did she feel so anxious? Aristine ordered the court ladies prepare some eggs for the knights. Hearing that, the court ladies bowed their heads without uttering a word. Meanwhile, Brody's expression turned white. Wait! Brody grabbed Aristine's arm. You can't possibly want to give eggs to the knights now, right? Why not? Aristine looked at Brody with puzzlement in her eyes. You asked me how I could eat an egg when the knights were hurt. Brody opened her mouth slightly when she heard that, but nothing came out. I want to give the knights delicious food, to comfort them as you wish, so what's the problem? No, that... The knights are... She couldn't bring herself to say that they had become eunuchs. Aristine studied Brody while Brody remained silent, then Aristine's gaze fell on her wrist, which was being clutched. Startled by that, Brody hurriedly released her hold, and right away she was inwardly shocked by her own actions. How can I back down to this kind of princess? And the princess didn't even say anything to her, but she got scared by herself and stepped back. Brody bit her lips heavily. These are so delicious, so I'm sure they'll like it if I give it to them. As you say, they are loyal knights who serve me with their utmost sincerity. Of course I should take care of them. Aristine smiled brightly and left the dining room. Behind her was an accompaniment of court ladies who were bringing along a bunch of boiled eggs. That's the end of chapter 75. Chapter 76. Oof. The inside of the ward was filled with groans. The conditions of the knights was worse than Aristine expected. Their nose was crooked, their face was swollen, and the skin was marked with purple bruises. It was hard to tell how they originally looked from this appearance. When the knights learned that Aristine had come, they painstakingly tried to stand up. I thought they used the excuse of being in pain to greet me while laying down. That was unexpected. Princess! Perhaps even their tone was swollen, because their pronunciation was unclear. Aristine walked closer to the knights. Oh, this guy's eye is actually open. It was just so swollen that it looked close. Aristine's gaze swept over them, then she raised a brow. Some of the injuries looked brand new to me. She clearly heard that they had gotten her last night, but the dried blood on the injuries looked like a mixture of old and recently made ones. Aristine hid her doubt, and slowly began to speak. Oh dear, to think my loyal knights would be hurt like this. A sad look fell over Aristine's delicate face. She walked up to the head knight and patted him on the back. Princess, those barbaric bastards. She was making fun of them by saying that, but for some reason, the knights took Aristine's words seriously. I get their heart might soften because of the pain, but isn't this a bit too much? Despite thinking that, Aristine acted like she was agreeing with the knights and asked, Barbaric bastards? Yes, there's ignorance and uncivilized war. Ah, it can't be. Aristine cut the knight off. You're not going to say that the great noble knights of the great Sylvanus Empire were unnaturally beaten by the illegal warriors, right? The knights, who were fully prepared to complain about their injustice, stared blankly at Aristine. That can't possibly be it. Aristine smiled. It was a confident smile. Every day you all said that if we all had to go on to war, you would have destroyed all the Aragonians and brought victory to Sylvanus. The faces of the knights burned red, although it wasn't very obvious because of the bruises. When you actually met them, you were one-sidedly beaten. Saying something like that doesn't make any sense. After all, you're great knights, isn't that so? Aristine excitedly attacked their minds, apparently not feeling any pity for the knights who were already physically in shambles. Furthermore, there's no reason for illegal warriors to attack my knights now, is there? Aristine widened her eyes, acting innocent, and tilted her head. Unless you dare to speak vulgarly about me, the Princess of Sylvanus and the Princess of Irigo, of course. Both the knights and Brody, who followed along, looked at Aristine with shock in their eyes. Their fine innocence seemed to vanish into thin air as Aristine narrowed her eyes and raised a corner of her lips. Her purple eyes held the dignity of a ruler. The head knight flinched when he met that gaze head-on, and his body stiffened, his injured body screamed in pain when his muscles suddenly tensed. But he didn't even feel it. Apart from that, there's no reason for the illegal warriors to attack my knights. Her warriors couldn't be denied. The moment they denied it, they meant they had uttered vulgar words about Aristine. Yes, princess, right. There is no reason for the warriors to attack us. The knights hurriedly agreed with Aristine as they laughed awkwardly. The girl ladies who were watching this scene from behind looked at Aristine with admiration. As expected of her highness, with these, all the complaints against Irigo from Sylvanus are blocked at the root. One could only imagine what would have happened if it was known that the Irigo warriors were one-sidedly attacking Sylvanus knights on the night of the marriage for peace. And what if Sylvanus formally protested this incident? Of course, there was a good reason for the warriors' reaction. But that couldn't be exposed because of Aristine's honor. However, just now, the knights themselves denied that Irigo warriors had attacked them. Or, because of Aristine's manipulation, the knights didn't stop there. They even began to make excuses to cover how bothered they were. Actually, we wanted to try and subjugate some demonic beasts to commemorate the prince's wedding. Yes, exactly. But then we were surrounded by hundreds of demonic beasts. Of course, we were all dealt laden with all the demonic beasts. So that's what happened. Aristine cupped her hands in front of her chest in admiration. I admire the loyalty of all you. In fact, she was admiring the knight's ability to still bluff even in this situation. When they heard her say that, the knight sighed in relief. Sure enough, the princess was stupid. To think she was just going to let it go because they flattered her. They didn't even fathom that they had actually been manipulated by Aristine. You sacrificed your bodies to elevate my reputation, so I must do something in return. When Aristine gave them a look, the girl ladies stepped forward. I shall grant you a reward. The girl ladies took something out of their baskets, one by one, and gave them to the knights. Once the knights saw the item, their eyes almost popped out of their eye sockets. This, it was an egg. Eggs are very good for your body and are often called nutritionally perfect, so they will be helpful for the recovery of your injured bodies. Aristine explained, like she was reciting the words, like they weren't even listening to her. Their eyes couldn't see anything, nor could they hear, because all their senses were recalling the tragedy of their previous night. Even when they were getting beaten up by the warriors, the knights did not lose hope. Even though they were unable to put up a proper resistance against such a brutal violence, they believed that they would lose their lives that easily. That was certainly the case. A doctor was called right away, and their hope was further inflated by the prompt first aid. However, I'm sorry. The doctor bowed with a solemn expression. No. Why are you apologizing, doctor? No, don't tell me. My guys are not the type to go down that easily. These guys have been with me my whole life. The doctor's face grew more solemn as the knights clamored with shock and confusion. They are already gone. The doctor looked away after saying that, and the knights shook their heads with distress. Unable to accept the reality, this was a dream. They were just dreaming. It had to be a dream. However, they already gone once, didn't respond anymore. How? How can you leave me? We're supposed to be together forever. We were born together, and I thought we would die together. The knights held the area between their legs and wept bitterly. The ones that were gone was not their fellow knights or the person they had carried. It was the place where the genes of the second generation were stored. It was none other than a man's 2 eggs. That's the end of chapter 76. Chapter 77. How can I be an energy? You can't do this, doctor. Oh, my eggs are gone. My dear eggs are gone. They've been all shattered. Now they're cracked, broken eggs. The chilling howls of the men who had lost their life partners reverberated throughout the world, even more so since they were all single. The knights held the egg in both hands, while mourning the sudden loss of their own egg. To others, it looked like they were moved to tears, while preciously holding the egg that the princess bestowed to them. What's wrong? Are you not going to eat it? Aristine looked at the head knight, who was holding the egg carefully. Then she raised her right hand. In her hand was a silver spoon that she had brought from the dining room. And with that, a gentle flick of her wrist, tack! The egg broke. The head knight's enlarged. No! A desperate scream right through the room. Aristine didn't care and went ahead to crack the eggs of the other knights as well. Enjoy! Ah, my egg! No, no, no! The knights howled like their own eggs were broken. They were yet to overcome the shock of becoming an energy when the trauma was stimulated again. They had lost all reason. Well, this reaction is something. Aristine looked at the knights in a bit of a sour mood. They were so cruel when tormenting others, but were so weak when they were the ones suffering. They're not getting married anyway, so what does it matter if they become managed? For the sake of women all over the world. No, for the sake of humanity. These bastards should not get married. After screaming for a while, the knights raised their heads. Their eyes spun like they had lost their minds. The knights sprang to their feet and moved towards Aristine. Although they were injured all over the body, they moved very quickly. What the hell do you think you're doing, princess? The knights screamed at Aristine. It looked like they were about to grab her neck. Are you mocking us now that we have become haeon? Do you think after such humiliation you will be safe? The knight who was talking abruptly stopped moving. Of course you will, yes. You will be safe. There will be no issues at all. Seeing the knight suddenly changing his stance, Aristine frowned. What is going on? Princess certainly doesn't mean to mock us. You gave us such delicious eggs, but to think we haven't eaten them yet. I was just so moved that I stood up. I didn't mean anything else. Delicious. It must be so delicious, because this egg is from the princess. Even though their faces looked like a purple steam band, the knights tried to put on the friendliest smile possible and acted to please her. Why are they suddenly acting so servile? Aristine's eyes turned sharp. For some reason, she felt like the knights were subtly glancing away from her. She checked behind her to see if something was there, but only saw the court ladies, and she couldn't see anything peculiar about the appearance of the court ladies. Seriously, what is it? When she turned forward again, she saw the purple steam bands eating the eggs and going as they smiled. It wasn't a very pleasant sight to see. Thankfully, it doesn't look like she noticed. Haeon thought as he stood half hidden behind a pillar and stared at Aristine's back. The knights who were subjected to his gaze trembled while smiling like fools. With the way they were lowering themselves to Aristine and rubbing their hands, it was like they were going to lick Aristine's feet at this rate. Stupid bastards. When faced with overwhelming violence, people became endlessly humble. Especially bastards like this. 2 hours ago, after fighting with Aristine, who had treated him like a hot, puffy bread, Haeon skipped his meal and went to the meeting chamber. And there, he got a report about events that occurred the previous night. In other words, the news that Mukali, Jacqueline, and Durate had flattened the Sylvanus knights into mush. Sorry, my lord. Haeon looked at the three of them, who were bowing their heads without making excuses. Frankly, Haeon didn't care what happened to the Sylvanus knights. Of course, there would be political issues. But he had never cared about political issues. Besides, Haeon had even stepped on a knight and thrown him into the dungeon. If anything, he felt a little refreshed. It always bothered him that those bastards were next to his bride. Why did you do it? The Silver's knights made inappropriate remarks toward Her Highness. At Durante's reply, a light flashed in Tarquin's eyes. This was surprising. It was a common occurrence for the hot-blooded Mukali to cause trouble. Jacqueline was a rude person, and usually had a good hold of himself, while when he got together with Mukali, they would both cause trouble. And the person usually stopping them is Durante. But even Durante joined forces to beat up Selvin's knights. Normally Durante was interested in those around him. He was very perceptive and decisive, but he didn't care about anything. The only thing that mattered to Durante was his master, Tarquin. Hence it was surprising that he was involved in something concerning Aristine. Even more so, since the consequences of his actions could be weakening Tarquin's political position. I judged that was the right action to take. Durante consciously answered Tarquin's question. Because your highness cares about her highness. Durante didn't say those words out loud. Even if he said it, Tarquin would not accept it. If Durante thought it was right, then it must be correct. Those bastards must have done something wrong. The warriors had endless trust in Durante, who rushed to his defense. Mukali's nose twitched. By the way, I'm surprised Mukali stepped into for Her Highness. I thought you didn't like the princess. That is a given. She's the princess of Sylvanus. It's impossible for me to like her. Mukali exclaimed forcefully. Why did you do that then? Mukali himself didn't even know. His hand moved first. The moment he confirmed that those disgusting words were directed towards Aristine, the sleaze mag of that Sylvanus knight was already rolling on the ground. Because the punch he threw. It's not because she's the princess. It's because what those bastards were saying was too disgusting. Mukali yelled like he had found the right answer. Just as warriors had their prides, knights had something called chivalry. However, the Sylvanus knights seemed to have thrown all of the chivalry away because they spoke more vulgarly than the street dogs. What exactly did they say? Tarquin, who was watching the warriors discuss, quietly asked that those words were so filthy that he couldn't bear to say them in front of his masters. However, he couldn't ignore his master's question, so Mukali hesitantly repeated what he had heard. Snap! The armrest of Tarquin's chair gave in with a terrifying sound, and his chair was made of gold and other metals instead of wood and leather. But, as this was made of papier-mâché, the armrest was dented by his grip. That's the end of chapter 77. Chapter 78. I see. So that's what they said. Tarquin's voice was chilling, like it had crawled out of hell. The warriors instinctively stiffened. They held their breaths and didn't dare to look at Tarquin directly. The vivid bloodthirst rippling through their arm almost made them activate their auras. It was a feeling they hadn't gotten before. Even when they were with Tarquin, after a round of slaughter, and he was drenched with the blood of demonic beasts. The sound of birds chirping in the garden had already ceased. To my bride! The violent bloodthirst, which seemed like it was going to touch down the room, was sucked in Tarquin and vanished in an instant. Only then were the warriors able to catch their breaths. It was only a short moment, but it felt like an eternity. The chirping of the birds still hadn't resumed. Where are they? Tarquin asked. His attitude was the same as usual, as if the brutal bloodthirst just now had been an illusion. The atmosphere around him was also tranquil. However, the warriors were unable to relax. They are in the ward. In Tarquin's palace there was a huge separate ward. There were many warriors who followed Tarquin. So it was made out of necessity. How is their condition? They will have to lay you in bed for 2 months. Also, when Durante paused purposefully in the middle of his reply, Tarquin raised a brow. They have become enigmas. At those words, Tarquin's mouth, which was fixed in a heavy frown, curled up slightly. A hint of satisfaction permitted his golden eyes. If Aristine saw his face right now, she would definitely take a tiny step back. while thinking something like he's happy about other people becoming energy. Sure enough, a pervert. Tarkan left the meeting room and went to the ward where the Sylvanese knights were laying down. Making them manage is not enough. That was what he thought. Hence, Tarkan used his own hands to reconstruct the face of every single knight. After doing that, his feet strangely started heading towards Aristine. But just as he was about to arrive at the dining room, Aristine suddenly opened the door of the dining and came out. For some reason, Tarkan hid himself behind a pillar. Then he quietly followed Aristine. He didn't even know why he did that. Tarkan had never followed anyone before. He had only tailed the Monarch beast. But he was worried that Aristine might feel hurt after hearing what happened. His bride was a very unusual woman. But still, there was only those kinds of words that wouldn't hurt. Maybe reconstructing their face wasn't enough. While thinking that, he continued to watch Aristine. But he didn't expect her to, without a shred of hesitation, break eggs in front of the bastards, who had recently become energy. But Kali, who was beside Tarkan, shuddered involuntarily at the cruel treatment. This sort of thing would make my man with an egg flinch. His wife always differed from his expectations, and it was quite the delightful sight. The knight ate the eggs with tears running down their face. It was scary. They didn't know that monster was still hanging around the word. The word monster was not enough to describe Tarkan. Hell itself would be gentle compared to him. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Aristine thought of a rough explanation about the knight's changing attitude. So she put an end to her doubts. Their minds must have been unstable after becoming energy. As she was thinking to herself, a voice ran behind her. Wife, it was Tarkan. It seemed he had heard about what happened as well. The warriors attacking the knights could become a diplomatic issue, so I understand his concern. Aristine tried to make eye contact with Tarkan and blinked eagerly. I have resolved everything. Don't worry. There will be no diplomatic issue. I'm pretty competent, aren't I? Tarkan flinched. He didn't know why, but Aristine was looking at him with sparkling eyes. His unreserved footsteps faltered for a moment. The standard design of an Iroquois man attire exposed the chest, and Tarkan was no exception, so his bare chest was showing right now. Tarkan unconsciously raised his hand to cover his chest. Aristine looked at his actions with puzzlement, then she walked up to him. For some reason, Tarkan flinched even more. His expression was perplexed as he looked at Aristine. Then he turned his face away. His cheeks were slightly red. I've handled the entire issue with the knights. Come with me, and I'll explain. Aristine took Tarkan's hand and pulled him alone. Tarkan followed her lead. Upon witnessing this scene, the warrior's eyes went round, while the court ladies nodded in satisfaction. The two of them walked across the garden, which was full of spring flowers. Aristine's skirt swayed softly in the spring wind, and gently swept over the green grass. People stopped walking and stared at the couple walking affectionately. Wow, it felt like the ordinary garden had suddenly become divine. Right then, there was a rustling sound. Aristine turned to the direction it came from. Sea blue hair fluttered in the wind. Even when surrounded by the fresh spring garden, the woman standing there gave off an enticing luster. Diana, when Aristine called her name, Diana's red lips curved into a smile. The end of chapter 78. Your Highness, Tarkan Princess. Diana politely greeted the two of them. Should I leave? Aristine thought. She could explain to Tarkan later that she had dealt with what happened, so it wouldn't become a diplomatic issue. For now, it would be best to give the two of them time alone. Such thoughts were running through Aristine's mind, but Ariona spoke first. Princess, I'm sorry, but may I borrow His Highness Tarkan's for a while? I have something to discuss with His Highness. She was already thinking of doing that. Aristine let go of Tarkan's hand and was about to nod her head. But just as her hand was slipping away, Tarkan suddenly grabbed it. He held her hand tightly, as if saying he didn't plan on letting go. Aristine looked up to Tarkan in surprise. However, he was not looking at her. My wife and I have something to discuss as well. Wife? Diana's face paled when Tarkan said that word so naturally, but she gave a soft smile and nodded her head. I see. Pardon me. I was not aware. And then she bowed her head towards Aristine. I'm sorry, princess. Wait. Why are you apologizing to me? Aristine looked at Diana, feeling somewhat absurd. When she did this, it looked as if Aristine was blocking Tarkan and Diana's date. Come on, I'm not the one who refuses, your boyfriend. Aristine didn't want to be a third party stuck between two lovers. There's no need to apologize to me, actually. Would you like to come along? What Tarkan and I are going to discuss isn't exactly a secret. As she said that, her right cheek felt prickly. Even without turning to look, she could tell that Tarkan was fixing an intense gaze on her. What is this guy's problem now? Even if she wanted to talk about something secret, she could do that after Diana was gone. They both shared the same bedroom anyway, so they could just talk at night. Oh my, is that okay? Diana asked with a pleased smile. Let's have some tea. With tart. Aristine sneakily exposed her ulterior motive. Thank you, princess. Diana's eyes curved as she gave a deep smile. Tarkan, who was watching this, called her. His voice was rigid. Diana. Yes? Diana innocently looked up to him, as if to say, is there anything? Tarkan stared at Diana's face for a moment, then frowned slightly and turned away. So, she's planning on following us. Diana was a sharp woman, so she always understood Tarkan's intention and acted before he even said anything. Even now, she must have noticed that he was not happy with her following them around. It can't be helped. Aristine was the one who suggested it first, but Tarkan couldn't retract it, because doing that would be disrespecting Aristine's will. Most of all, there was no real reason for him to send Diana away and be alone with Aristine. Why do I feel annoyed, though? The princess is not my wife, so call her your highness from now on. At Tarkan's cold words, Diana's eyes trembled. Even after marriage, Aristine was still the princess of Sylvanus. But now that she was the wife of a prince of Irigo, it was certainly odd for the people of Irigo to refer to her as the princess of a foreign country. Nevertheless, she didn't think that Tarkan would point it out. Tarkan was never the type of man to care about such trivial things, but why? Why does he keep acting differently than usual when it involves Aristine? Diana hid her fists, which were clenched tightly behind her skirt. I apologize, I got used to it. Of course, her calling Aristine princess was certainly not because she got used to it. It was because she didn't want to call Aristine Tarkan's wife, because that position should belong to herself, Diana. Diana's sea blue eyes reflected Aristine's face. She felt like there was a blade in her mouth as she moved her tongue to speak. Your Highness the Princess. That simple phrase, alone, seemed to cut the inside of her mouth and make her bleed. Diana was definitely smiling, but with the expression she had, she was better off not. Aristine wanted to leave this uncomfortable situation as soon as possible. Well, you can just call me correctly from now on. Shall we go then? When she quickly changed the subject, Tarkan nodded and began to walk. He was still holding Aristine's hand. His shoulders were broad, and his shoulder blades were well developed. His waist was slender, and his straight legs were elegant. Tarkan looked like a male deity, and Aristine's delicate figure was standing next to him, made for a beautiful picture. Even seeing the figure from behind made people's heart flutter, because it seemed like a mysterious scene from a myth. Diana could see the court ladies who were staring at the two of them, completely mesmerized. Among them, there were also court ladies who served Diana closely. Diana bit her lips harshly. Even to her, the both of them looked good together. They must be even worse for other people. She remembered how the crowd was praising them at the wedding yesterday. Some of the people watching the parade had even cried. A fan club had formed almost immediately. And how did the newspaper behave? This was a wedding of Irigo's prince and hero, and a political marriage with the Sylvanus Empire. It was an event that was bound to make headlines. However, the tone of the writing was strange. Instead of discussing the details of the wedding, or the interactions for each class in the social ladder, or the political changes due to the arranged marriage, or addressing future expectations, etc., fucking romance of the century. All he talked about was how good the two of them looked together, how they exchanged looks at each other, what kind of crisis they faced in the middle of the wedding parade, and how they overcame it with love. It was full of such useless things. And imagine how many photos they published. It was to the point where she had to wonder if this was a newspaper or an illustrated romance novel. Diana couldn't control her anger and ripped the newspaper to pieces. That wasn't even enough to sate her anger, so she burned them and cursed those reporters. Even after doing so, she obsessively bought gossip magazines to see if there were any bad rumors about Aristine. However, first night of the newlyweds, the bed broke. The condition of the royal couple's bed. Exclusive. A picture of the royal couple's bed. The gossip magazines published articles about Tarkan and Aristine breaking the bed on the first night, as if they had all promised to be so beforehand. In fact, the gossip magazines, which claimed to have an exclusive photo of the bed, said to have recorded the highest sales since its inception. Diana, who was crying like crazy after reading such gossip, couldn't bear it anymore and came to the palace to see Tarkan, because she thought she would have been feeling reassured when she saw him with her own eyes. After all, there was no way Tarkan would give his heart to Aristine, so that would absolutely never happen. Tarkan clearly told her that his heart would never change. Since this was a marriage for peace, it was not possible to meet the first night. The moment the two of them used the separate rooms, the whole country would be in uproar. The Queen's faction would also attack, and above all, it would chill the hearts of all the people who were excited about yesterday's wedding. Hence, Diana thought that by now, Tarkan would not be paying the princess any attention and would be going about his duties as well. However, Diana looked at Tarkan, who was moving farther away without looking back. He was still standing here. She hadn't even taken a single step. Yet he didn't look back even once, and he was still holding Aristine's hand. Diana ground her teeth lightly. A thunderous wave of anger erupted in her sea-blue eyes. You think I will back down like this? No matter what happens, she will never back down. His Highness Tarkan's will be mine. That's the end of chapter 79. And last chapter, 80. Diana, hang in there. The tart was baked with finely ground sweet and ripe persimmon, and with one glance you could see it was fresh and enticing. Aristine was thrilled as she looked at the tart. She quickly took a bite with her fork, and the perfect blend of savory almond cream and cream made with persimmon made her unconsciously close her eyes. The golden tart was so crispy, and the buttery flavor was so rich, she felt deeply moved. The pâtissier at this palace was not only good at making scone, but his other staff was also amazing. When she divorces Tarkan later, the person she would miss the most would be the pâtissier whose face she has never seen. Aristine saw that Diana wasn't even thinking of touching the tart she had recommended. Diana, have a bite. The pâtissier here is really skilled, so everything is delicious. With something this delicious, she didn't even mind being a salesperson. The pâtissier? Diana asked, feeling a little reluctant. Tarkan did not enjoy this kind of desserts. He had never sicked them out first, and even when he was served with tea, it was rare for him to touch them. Hence, the pâtissier in Tarkan's palace was only so-so in terms of skill. Outside, they might be highly regarded, but in the royal palace, their skill was definitely low. But for the princess to say that they were really skilled? It seems after living in confinement, her taste buds aren't that accurate. She inwardly ridiculed the princess, but then she suddenly remembered that Mukali had casually mentioned, I think my lord is planning to use his scone as battle rations. Scones? Yeah, he suddenly asked us to recruit a pâtissier good at making scones. He even said the coast doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter if they belong to another palace. That if you get a pâtissier from another palace, there will be conflict. I'm sure Jacqueline will handle that. That guy is smart. If my lord wants it, we will do it. Back then, she only thought it was absurd to make scones, battle rations, but now, she had a bad feeling. Young miss, do you hear? Princess Jenny Corina fired her pâtissier. Really? I thought the pâtissier was her favorite. She showed them off a lot too. Well, I'm not too sure on the details, but everyone is making a fuss trying to recruit the pâtissier. That's because one of the reasons Princess Jenny Corina's tea parties are so popular is because of the desserts. The contents of that chat with her maid flashed through Diana's mind. When she heard it, she didn't think much of it. The maids would talk about their gossip with the maids of other families while combing Diana's hair, so she didn't really take notice of it. If she had to pick the best pâtissier in the royal palace, it was undoubtedly Jenny Corina's pâtissier. Naturally, the scones they made would be the best. Diana, do you not like the tarts, perhaps? Aristine asked Diana, who didn't seem to have any intention of touching the tart. Ah, that's not it. Diana was taken aback and shook her head. She was lost in thought for too long. Since your highness is speaking so favorably about it, I'm looking forward to it. Let me have a taste. Just when Diana said that and picked up her fork, oh no, I'm so tactless. Aristine sighed, blaming herself. You don't have to eat it, Diana. I'm sorry. Diana was dazed by the sudden apology. Why is she doing this? Even after digging through the entire conversation, she couldn't see any reason for Aristine to apologize. Was she trying to make me look bad in front of His Highness Tarkans? Her Highness the Princess made a kind suggestion. Diana didn't seem to like it, so Her Highness was made to apologize. Or something like that? Is she trying to weave that kind of a story? How cunning. Diana lowered her head with a soft smile on her face. Unlike the princess who was almost expressionless, Diana was a master of managing her facial expression and image. Allow me to teach you that you are not my opponent. Please take back your apology, Your Highness. I was just moved by Your Highness' kindness that I was rendered speechless for a while. Diana's face was sweet as honey. But for you to apologize, have I perhaps upset you, Your Highness? She asked while looking into Aristine's eyes, and deliberately acted anxious. This made Diana notice that Aristine didn't respond quickly after she spoke. Diana having satisfaction and gave a smile. The princess was someone who couldn't even manage her image properly. Unsurprisingly, she looked obviously taken aback by Diana's words. I'm not surprised. She probably never thought I would counterattack this way. She would have known better than to dare to attack me. Why would you accept me? It's not that, but didn't Aristine deny any while glazing at Tarkan? Diana inwardly broke out in a huge sneer, so utterly clumsy. I wonder what excuse the princess would give. No matter what excuse she gave, Diana was confident that she could crush it to pieces. Soon enough, Aristina spat out the remainder of her sentence. I know you're not feeling well. Pardon? Those words were completely unexpected. Diana couldn't understand what in the world Aristine was talking about. Your stomach, your bowel movements aren't the best. Bowel movements? If you have the illness, this kind of food isn't good. You weren't eating on purpose, but because I suggested that you eat, Aristine was certainly speaking in the official language of the continent. But Diana simply couldn't grasp what she meant. It must be embarrassing, right? I didn't even know, and I tactlessly suggested it a second time. Aristine looked at Diana with beating eyes. Her gaze truly looked apologetic. Were you right last time? You went to the restroom in such a hurry. Were you able to have a pleasant and refreshing discharge? Aristine's eyes were asking that. Diana's mouth fell open. It can't be. No way. Is she saying that I'm constipated? That's the end of chapter 81.